Online people, am I audible? Yes. All right. Good evening to all of you. As I told you yesterday that we are going to discuss consequences of ethics and then the concept known as values. Okay. So let's look at consequences of ethics. Now this topic is so important that almost every year the questions are asked on it in UPSC directly or indirectly. Now, when we talk about consequences of ethics, we look at human action from evaluative point of view. So what ethics does, it evaluates human action. But human action happens at both the levels, individual level as well as group level. So when we talk of individual level, what is the focus of ethics? Okay, ethics tries to reconcile individual interests with collective interests. Now, in this statement, there are certain assumptions. One assumption is that individual interests may not align with the collective interests. So, do you agree that there may be sometimes conflict between individual as well as collective interest? Yes. So, sometimes what individual wants may be opposed by society or group, or sometimes whatever proposed or wanted by group is opposed by individual. So, the focus of ethics is how to align these two different interests. At collective level or group level, ethics tries to protect the interest of minority. But at the same time, it tries to take interest of other stakeholders, like including majority, environment, rivers, trees, animals. So that is why in our ethics, there is a topic known as environmental ethics. Right? Now, the answer to the question that what are the consequences of ethics, it can be answered in two ways. One in positive way and another in negative way. Positive way is this one. What will happen if individual or society behave ethically, right? But second is what will happen if they fail to behave ethically. So today we are going to discuss only positive impact or positive consequences of ethics, and then we will reverse the exact same effect in order to understand negative. So once you know what are the positive effects of ethics when individual or group behave ethically, then you can easily imagine the negative impact of unethical behavior. Okay. So let's look at when individuals, when they are ethical, what happens. So write down if you want to. First is preservation of justice in society. Okay, they contribute towards preservation of justice in society. So what is justice according to common man? So if you ask common man his conception of justice, generally defines that a good people or good individual who do good things should get good results or good rewards, and people who do bad things should get punished. Okay, so the common conception behind this conception of justice is people should get what they deserve, right? But sometimes you may come across instances where people don't get what they deserve. Sometimes good people get punished and bad people get rewarded. So people who are guided by ethics, they oppose such things. They make sure that justice is served in society. So there are many instances where people took initiative to oppose the injustice and to serve the justice. Okay. Now, your homework lies in collecting examples where people waged fight against injustice. For example, Medha Patkar, she fought for the rights of people who were displaced by the dam construction. Or there are many instances, okay, social activists or RT activists who fought for justice. Second, they contribute to amelioration of suffering. Amelioration का मतलब है reduction. So there are many social sufferings. Okay, for example, poverty, inequality, discrimination, violence, then gender discrimination, racial violence. So these people try to reduce this suffering. So for example, I can give you some example. In Maharashtra, you might have heard about Amte family, Baba Amte and his sons and their wives and everyone in their family is trying to serve the society in their own way, right? Or you might have heard about Dr. Abhay Bang, Dr. Rani Bang, who got Magsaysay Award. They worked for the upliftment of tribal communities in Maharashtra. Or you might have heard about Kailash Satyarthi, who got Nobel Peace Prize for working towards child labor, right? Then you might have heard about Bharti Kirti, who fought against child marriages, or Lakshmi Agarwal, who helps acid attack survivor because she's herself acid attack survivor. Then Bezwada Wilson, who fought for the rights of sanitation worker. Then Baba Adhav in Pune, who fought for the rights of laborers in unorganized sector. So you can keep adding many examples here, that people who saw the sufferings in society and they made sure that the suffering would be reduced. Even you can add Mother Teresa as well, right? Then third point is they contribute towards promotion of human flourishing. So when you say human flourishing, right, Narendra Dabholkar as well. So when you say human flourishing, it is human development as well. So when you talk about human development, three things stand out. One is health, second is education, and third is decent standard of living. So do you know people who contributed to such human flourishing? One name that comes in front of my mind is Karmavir Bhaurao Anna Patil from Maharashtra. He created schools for children from poor strata, right? So you can keep adding many examples. So there are some groups or people who have created affordable healthcare systems, or there are people who created employment for poor people, right? So human flourishing. Then they make sure that the rewards and punishment and likes and guilt are appropriately assigned. So again, I would like to give here an example that in Chhattisgarh there is a village known as Burgpal. So many villagers from this village were put behind bar and they were convicted as criminals or Naxalites, but they were not. Okay, so some people fought for such conviction, fought against such conviction, and they were later on released after certain years. So many times in society it happens that rewards and punishment, guilts and likes are not justly distributed. Sometimes good people get punished, bad people get rewarded. Okay, then they contribute towards collective achievement of goals. Now, as a society, we have certain collective goals, right? For example, Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, or Har Ghar Jal, or you can say Skill India Mission. So these initiatives by government don't happen automatically. Some people actively contribute to the implementation of these initiatives. So again, you have to collect some examples where people have played active part in implementing such initiatives. Then last is they provide an antidote or solution or medicine to the greed, hatred, and malice in the society. So when you say society, you cannot envision that it is completely peaceful. There will always be some conflict, frictions between different groups based on different notions. So people who have ethical values, they see it as a problem and they try to create harmony. And one example that comes to my mind is Mahatma Gandhi. So when our country became independent, partition happened and many cities which were at the border witnessed communal riots. So Gandhi and his followers visited these cities and tried to pacify people and try to reduce the enmity between them. So always keep in mind the good leaders always know the importance of peace and harmony in the society, because they understand that without these things the real progress is not possible. On the other hand, bad leaders keep dividing the society. Rather, they take the benefit of division and hold on to power by playing one group against the other. Okay, so this is in short about what happens when individuals are ethical and how they contribute in their own way in the society. Okay, now next is what happens when the group is ethical. Now in group, we would go for private organization. Now you may ask, why private organization? Because tomorrow you are going to join public organization. But why we are looking at private organization from ethical perspective? Because since NPG reforms, government's role got reduced and private sector's role has increased even in the implementation of public policy. For example, you might have heard about PPP, right? Public private partnership. So if you are outsourcing many of the government projects, government work to the private sector, you must be aware that what does it mean to have ethics in private sector and what happens when private sector or private organizations are ethical, right? So even if you are going to serve in government organization, still you should be about the aware about the ethical dimensions that are applicable to private sector. So let's look at some of the effects. One is they create respect not just for shareholders but stakeholders. Now shareholders are those who own the company through shares, but stakeholders are also those who are connected with the company. For example, employees, customers, suppliers, lenders, dealers, even society is a stakeholder, government is also a stakeholder. So all these people feel respected when the private organization working are ethical. Okay. Second, they create respect for others in transaction. So even if someone or some entity have even once have transacted its business with the organization, still they automatically get appreciated in the market because ethical organization only choose right people, right? Then third, they build long-term capacities in stakeholders as they learn avoid shortcuts. Okay, इसका मतलब क्या है? Long term capacities मतलब they groom the people for future leadership. So in many organizations, it has been seen that people rose through ranks. Okay, have you heard that many organizations sponsor higher education of their employees, right? They build them up for future leadership, right? So this is nothing but building long-term capacities. Then they establish transparent norms for interrelationship. So everything that happens in the organization is known to everyone, who deals with whom and in what. And this transparency takes away incentive to do wrong things. So transparency is again another essential part. Then they make sure that the organizations are socially responsible. So here comes the role of CSR. You might have heard about CSR. CSR is nothing but corporate social responsibility, right? But this is not the only way through which they become socially responsible. Sometimes they align their products and services such that they would solve the social issues. For example, some organizations produce and supply cheap sanitary pads. So these pads take care of the menstrual hygiene of the women from poor families. Or you might have heard about smokeless chula, that the oven which is created which produces less smoke, because even today in rural areas the major cause of lung disease among women is indoor pollution caused due to traditional hearths. So smokeless chula is an answer. So these organizations aren't only earning the profit, they are also trying to solve some social issues, that is known as socially responsible organizations. Next, they go beyond compliance and abide by code of ethics. Now, compliance का मतलब है doing what is told by law. And what law tells you? That it is common minimum necessary morality that we have seen earlier, right? But these organizations don't wait for the law to tell them what is right and wrong. They develop their own code of ethics. So you might have heard that in many organizations, they train employee for ethics. Not only they train for employee for ethics, they also conduct their examination on ethics. And unless they qualify this examination, they won't be given the important responsibilities. Then they create high employee morale. Now the meaning of morale is motivation. So people are not just there to earn money or earn salary, they are motivated to contribute. And this is because of the ethical values that are practiced in the organization. Then they generate work satisfaction among employees. Now, what gives satisfaction to employees? It is not salary, it is not appreciation, it is the work that gives satisfaction. So, when people get to work on the things they like really, they are passionate about, they contribute more. So, in many organizations, these organizations make sure that people should enjoy their work. So, they are allotted work based on their preferences or their likings. Then next is they are being respected in the eyes of public. Now here the one word comes to my mind is brand. Okay, so have you seen some brands that are blindly followed by people? Now, is it because of only quality? No, it is also because of ethics. Because some of the companies walk extra mile for their customers. Some companies provide lifetime warranty. Some companies provide free doorstep delivery or free services, right? So when these companies sacrifice a lot and take care of employees or take care of customers, these customers become loyal towards this company and the company becomes a brand. Okay, then they ensure that the transparency and integrity is ensured at all levels. So these values are not only meant for people who work at lower and middle level, they are also applicable to people who work at a very high level like CEOs. And finally, they train people to resolve ethical dilemmas in accordance with organizational values. So many times in your work area, dilemmas are inevitable, but people are already trained to resolve it, right? And this is the essence of ethics in private organization. So have you understood all these points, guys? Yes, these are important points because tomorrow you'll be having certain questions on any one of these points, or you will have a case study based on a private company where you'll have to see whether these all consequences are happening or not. If they are not, you have to prove why. And also, one more homework for you guys is try to collect as many examples as possible for these points from current events, whether they prove the point or disprove the point, or whether they are positive effect or negative effect. For example, on our Telegram channel, I have shared some of the examples of corporate scandals that have took place in India. So they are failure of ethics in private organization. One example is Vijay Mallya's Kingfisher or Enron or Bhopal gas tragedy. These are some of the examples, right? So go through, yes, ICICI Bank Chanda Kochar, yes, Satyam software scandal, correct. These are right examples, correct. So start going through our Telegram channel. You will find plenty current event stuff, and you'll also would come to know that how to read current event and link it to ethics. Okay. Recently, have you heard about KPSC news, Karnataka Public Service Commission news? Now, let's talk about public institutions. What happens when they are ethical? Okay, so one thing that happens that they provide leadership to other organizations in the same domain, and they set the high benchmark for others to follow. Now, in this, one example that comes to my mind is Delhi Metro under E. Sridharan. So E. Sridharan was the chief of Delhi Metro, and he completed Delhi Metro project within given cost and time. And this is unprecedented in government organization. It set the model for other metros. Exactly opposite example is Pune Metro. So do you know when the planning of Pune Metro was started? When there was discussion first time for Pune Metro, it happened in 2005. Now it is more than 20 years, and still it is not complete. Right? Huh. Another example you can add is Maharatnas, Mini Ratnas, Navaratnas. So some of the PSUs, public sector undertakings, they have set the benchmarks for corporate governance for others, right? So PSUs. Then they substantially contribute to satisfying fundamental needs of human beings. So what are the fundamental needs of human being? Are you aware of fundamental needs? Yes, food, shelter, water, even education and information these days, right? So you can mention Food Security Act, RTI, RTE. These are some of the examples that are trying to contribute. Even Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana is also another example. Okay, then they build credibility towards the organization among the masses. So some organizations have stood their reputation. For example, CAG, Comptroller or Auditor General, its auditing reports are highly valued, not only in public sector, but also in private sector. Then they ensure that the society remains a cohesive unit. For example, whatever divisions, conflict, and problems in society, they try to solve. For example, judiciary. Many a time, judiciary has intervened into controversial cases and have tried to settle. For example, Sabrimala issue, which was a controversial case, was settled by judiciary, right? And finally, they provide a better framework for ethical decision making. So one of the classic example is model code of conduct provided by T.N. Sheshan, right? When T.N. Sheshan was CEC, Chief Election Commissioner, he invented or he brought innovation of model code of conduct, and that model code of conduct reduced the many rampant malpractices in election and voting. So have you heard name of T.N. Sheshan? Yes, guys. Hmm? आपने सुना है नाम? Right. So these are some of the points you have to keep at the back of mind while writing about impact of ethical public institutions or organizations. और आपका homework ये है that you have to reflect on each point and elaborate it. Okay, and also add some example from current event. Now, adding example is easy if you start paying attention to current events and start linking it with uh, what you can say syllabus or PYQ. Is that clear? Any question about consequences? Have you understood? We discuss consequences of ethics at three level: individual level, private organization level and public organization level. अब आपको क्या करना है, इस हर एक पॉइंट को अच्छे से समझना है, इसके ऊपर थोड़ा रिफ्लेक्ट करना है, थिंक करना है, उसको एक्सपांड करना है थोड़ा, and try to collect examples that are relevant to these points the way I told you now. Okay. And negative impact of unethical behavior is exactly opposite to it. Okay, इसको सिर्फ रिवर्स कर दो. So shall we move ahead, guys? Yes. Hmm? Because what we discussed so far is more than enough as far as consequences of ethics is concerned. और इसके ऊपर हमेशा सवाल आया है. There have been always been question on consequences of ethics directly or indirectly. So you have to prepare a nice note on consequences of ethics. No, there is no word limit. As long as you are including what is essential, you can keep expanding. Okay. हाँ. Essential explanation आना चाहिए. Superfluous या repetitive या redundant, distantly connected points नहीं आनी चाहिए. Those which are close to the point, वो explanation आना चाहिए. है ना? So किसी point का थोड़ा ज्यादा हो सकता है, किसी का short हो सकता है. And plus you have to add examples. Yeah, so let's move ahead. Next important concept in our syllabus is values. Okay, so the word value comes from the Latin word value, and the meaning of value is write down power or help. So implied meaning of value or literal meaning of value through this meaning is something that creates impact. है ना? But ये literal meaning काफी नहीं है. You have to go beyond it and understand other dimensions of values. So for example, this dimension. Values are those things that we care about. Now, this is the starting point to understand your own value. So ask yourself, what do you really care about? So for example, if you care about how your time is spent, your value is punctuality. If you care about that the truth is always spoken, then truthfulness is your value. Or if you care about the taking responsibility of your own actions, then responsibility and accountability is your value. Are you getting the point? Or if you care about how money is spent, then thriftiness is your value. So first indicator of value is what do you care about? And this is the starting point of creating self-awareness or awareness about one's own values. Okay. Second point about value is values are those things that matter to us. So what are those things which we consider are more important? Okay, so when the time comes to set the priority, we give them highest preference. That also reveals our value. So for example, as far as your career is concerned, you had many options, right? But you chose only few. And the choices you made and the preferences you give indicates your value set. So even in your case studies, you have different options to choose from, but which one you choose or which one matters to you more reveals your value set. Is that clear, guys? Yes. Then values are also goals or ideals. This is also important. Okay. Values are like what? Goals or ideals. And how does they help? We aspire to achieve them. And by using them, we try to measure ourselves, others, and society by. So we use them to evaluate ourselves and others. समझ में आ रहा है? For example, you can write down example, the values that are mentioned in the preamble to the Constitution. Okay, so for example, values like socialism, secularism, liberty, equality, fraternity, justice, these are our goals or ideals. And by using these goals or ideals, we try to measure ourselves and others by. We make sure that government's activities or government decisions are aligned with these values. Make sure that others and our behavior is aligned with these values. So in that way, values serve as goals or ideals, right? And last, now here in this definition, please here insert one word after this word are, enduring. So values are enduring beliefs about what is desirable or undesirable. Now when we say what is desirable or undesirable, इसका मतलब ये है क्या होना चाहिए क्या नहीं होना चाहिए. So when you say something is desirable, मतलब ये होना चाहिए. When you say something is undesirable, मतलब ये नहीं होना चाहिए. So are you getting this point? So I'll give you an example. Okay, so have you come across people who believe that a relaxed life is good life, or life should be relaxed, rhythmic, peaceful, slow? So in Marathi we call it Nivantayushya. Have you come across such people who believe in relaxed life? They don't want hustle, है ना? हाँ. On the other hand, you will also find some people who believe that an active life is a good life. So they are always doing one or another kind of work, है ना, हमेशा वो काम करते रहते हैं कुछ ना कुछ। तो अगर काम नहीं होगा तो काम क्रिएट करेंगे, दे विल क्रिएट द वर्क। और बहुत बार कुछ लोग ऐसे भी होते हैं जो सिर्फ खुद नहीं काम करते, दे ऑल्सो मेक अदर्स टू वर्क। सो हैव यू फाउंड सच पीपल इन योर फैमिलीज, yes, or in your relationship or around, who think that living relaxed life is a waste of time? You should always be working, doing something now and then, right? Correct. राइट। सो ये जो कॉन्सेप्शन है कि लाइफ में क्या होना चाहिए क्या नहीं होना चाहिए, दैट रिवील्स द वैल्यूज। ओके, सो वैल्यूज आर एंड्यूरिंग बिलीफ्स अबाउट व्हाट इज डिजायरेबल और अनडिजायरेबल। अब ये जो सब डायमेंशन मैंने आपको बताए हैं, ओके, you have to keep all these at the back of mind whenever you are writing definitions of values or thinking about values. Okay, now some important points. One point is the concept of value has a place in philosophy. For example, you might remember that in last lecture we discussed axiology, right? Axiology का मतलब है मूल्य शास्त्र, the systematic study of what is worth or valuable in human life, correct? हाँ, but sometimes some concept come close to the value and they get confused. For example, price, right? So do you believe that price and values are same, one and same? For example, this mobile has a price and this mobile has a value, right? So is it same? The value of this mobile is similar to price? No. So who does decide price? Yes. कौन decide करता है price? The price is decided by producer and seller, right? Producer and seller. लेकिन value कौन decide कर रहा है? Yes, value is decided by user. For example, you look at water. The price of water may be same, but is its value same everywhere? Yes. No. For example, where it is available plenty, the value of water isn't that much, right? So in city like Pune, the water is available, है ना? So people may not value water that much. But if you go to drought-prone areas like Marathwada or some areas in Solapur district or Satara district, where there is little rainfall, so every drop of water is value, correct? Or you take another example. During COVID, remdesivir was sold at a very high price, right? So normal price of remdesivir was 4,000 to 5,000 rupees, but it got sold at 1 lakh. So that 1 lakh, was its price or value? Yes. ये 1 लाख जो है ये उसका प्राइस था या वैल्यू था? Correct, it was value. So sometimes value is expressed in terms of money, but it is, money is not real value, it is need, है ना, need of the person. अच्छा, कुछ चीजें उतने एक्सपेंसिव नहीं होते फिर भी वैल्यूएबल हो सकते हैं क्या? Yes, some things are not expensive but still valuable. Correct. For example, they may have emotional values. For example, Rakhi tied by sister, or gift received from a friend, or a little toy that a child gets. Right? So ये आपको क्या बता रहा है? That value is not a commercial concept. है ना? Value commercial concept नहीं, it is a philosophical concept. अच्छा, fact क्या होता है? Yes, can you tell me definition of fact? And how is it different from value? Yes, facts are often descriptive while values are prescriptive, है ना? फैक्ट डिस्क्राइब करते हैं ना, व्हाट इज देयर, है ना, राइट, बट वैल्यूज क्या होना चाहिए बता रहे। अच्छा, फैक्ट का मतलब ट्रूथ होता है क्या? when you say it is a fact, does it mean it is a truth? What is precise definition of fact? Yes. What is precise definition of fact? Is it always truth? No, it's not always truth. Fact is something that can be objectively proven as true or false. Okay. Fact is something that can be objectively proven as true or false. अच्छा, आप मुझे बताओ, फैक्ट बदलते रहते हैं क्या? डू यू बिलीव दैट फैक्ट कीप चेंजिंग? Right? Yes, they do. For example, I'll give you an example of Pluto. Did you hear about Pluto? Earlier it was a planet, then they made it a dwarf, and now they are again thinking of making it as a planet. So when the criteria which try to help us to make sense of fact change, fact also change. Right? So facts are not fixed. But what makes them fact is you can objectively prove that whether they are true or false. So tell me, sun rises in the east. Is it a fact or is it a value statement? Hmm. It is a fact. But when I say sunrise is beautiful than sunset, is it a fact or a value statement? Yeah, it's a value statement. Correct. Very good. So what do you understand here? Value is a philosophical term, even though it is used sometimes in economics or commerce, but it is more a philosophical term rather than commercial concept. Actually, there are other concepts like norms, and you have to understand difference between values and norms. Okay. Values are vague, general, while norms are specific, concrete. है ना? Values act as a basis for norms, while norms are manifestation of values. Are you getting the point? Values are more about what should be there, है ना? क्या होना चाहिए. But norms are more about what is acceptable and not acceptable. So in a group, values are fairly same, but norms differ according to situation. For example, honesty of a student versus honesty of a wife, है ना? ये वैल्यू सेम है, ऑनेस्टी, बट उसके नॉर्म्स अलग अलग है. डू यू एग्री विथ मी? यस. ऑनेस्टी ऑफ अ स्टूडेंट वर्सेस ऑनेस्टी ऑफ अ वाइफ, इसके वैल्यू सेम है बट नॉर्म्स अलग अलग है ना? So norms are more restrictive, specific, concrete. They differ according to situation. Values are more facilitative. They are general. They don't tell you specifically what does it mean. है ना? Norms आपको specific guidance देते हैं, है ना? Value specific guidance नहीं देती, है ना? That is why values are same in the group, right? But norms differ according to situation, है ना? Values provide a foundation to the norms, while norms act as the application of value in a particular context. Is this clear? Norms are more about what is acceptable and unacceptable in social relationship. Values about what should be there, है ना? Facilitative है वो, है ना? Norms are more restrictive. हाँ. They constrain behavior. Values guide behavior. ठीक है. So this is basic thing. अच्छा, कुछ और चीजें हैं हम क्विकली देखेंगे, है ना? इसके ऊपर ज्यादा हम इलाबोरेट नहीं करेंगे. पहला है, वैल्यूज रेगुलेट गाइड ह्यूमन बिहेवियर एंड एक्शन इन डे टू डे लाइफ. सो डे टू डे लाइफ में आप जो कर रहे हो उसमें भी वैल्यूज है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, लाइफ स्टाइल यू अडॉप्ट, द रिलीजियस बिलीफ यू कैरी, हाउ यू ट्रीट ईच अदर, ये जो डे टू डे लाइफ में हो रहा है उसमें वैल्यूज दिखाई देती है. वैल्यूज आर ऑल्सो सीन in this every word that we select or speak. So for example, when you look at something, whether you say beautiful or disgusting, it describes your value set. So एक ही चीज के लिए ये दो अलग अलग एग्जैक्टली अपोजिट रिएक्शन हो सकते हैं क्या? यस. क्या लगता है आपको? हम्म. चीज सेम है लेकिन वन गाय सेइंग ओ वाओ ब्यूटीफुल, अनदर गाय सेइंग ओ इट इज डिस्गस्टिंग. ऐसा हो सकता है क्या? Yes, for example, people have such reaction towards non-vegetarian food, right? Some people may find it very delicious and beautiful, है ना? Their mouth will water, but some people may find it very disgusting, repulsive. So, what kind of words you use when reacting to something or while speaking about something also reveals your value. That's why you should choose your words very carefully while writing the answer or answering questions in interviews. Then, what we wear. Sometimes our clothes are also value statement. Not always, but sometimes yes. Do you agree with it? Yes. Sometimes our clothes are also a value statement. Right. For example, in Western world, they have particular attire on funeral days. Right. When funeral is happening, they wear particular dress code. Correct. Then how we interact with others, how we perceive others, how we interpret others' reaction, that is also guided by values. So values are embedded in many small things. Okay. And what act as a basis for values? Write down these four things. Interest, choices, needs, desires, and preferences. Okay. Around which our values are formed. So for example, the one who is interested in science versus the one who is interested in art, their values may not be same, correct? Or even the choices that you have made, that also shape value. For example, if you have chosen to become engineer versus if you have chosen to become a doctor, your values may not be same. Even needs decide your values. For example, your grandparents who had different needs compared to yours may display different values. For example, in their days, food was not easily available. So have you seen your grandparents value each grain of the food? They don't waste it. But does your generation do that? Yes. आपका generation ऐसा करता है क्या? That you value each grain of the food? No, because you are brought up in such an environment where food was plenty available. So you did not value that much like your grandparents. So needs also shape values. And your desires and preferences also shape values, right? And when the value becomes, definite criteria for judgment, when there is intensity and stability, definiteness. So एक बार सच बोलने से आपका truthfulness value नहीं होगा. You have to display it consistently with intensity and stability. Then only you can use it as a criteria for judgment, right? So ये भी important है. So these are some of the important points. You have to keep them at the back of mind whenever you are dealing with questions on values. Okay. Now, we'll go for types of values. Please draw this diagram. And once you have drawn, let me know. We'll discuss these types of values. Done? Okay. Now let's start discussing these types of values. Intrinsic value versus extrinsic value. Now write down definition of intrinsic value. Intrinsic values are those values that are not used as means. Intrinsic values are those values that are not used as means to some ends. लिखा? It means, further लिखो, write down further. इट मीन्स दे आर एंड इन इटसेल्फ। ये फ्रेज आपको, ये वर्ड्स एक दूसरे को कनेक्ट करना है। एंड इन इटसेल्फ, एंड हाइफन इन हाइफन इटसेल्फ। It also means they are the ultimate ends that people want to pursue. So ultimately आपको क्या चाहिए, ये इंडिकेट कर रहा है कि आपका इंट्रिंसिक वैल्यू क्या है। So intrinsic values are those values that are not used as means. Full stop. It also means they are end in itself. End in itself. In Marathi we call it स्वयमेव साध्य। इसका मतलब ये भी है, these are the ultimate ends that people want to pursue. These are the ultimate ends that people want to pursue. Okay, so this is in brief about intrinsic value. Extrinsic values are those values, write down, extrinsic values are those values that are used as means to some ends. That are used as some means to some ends. That's why this categorization is also known as ends and means debate. Okay. This categorization, intrinsic and extrinsic, is also known as ends and means debate. Intrinsic values are like ends, while extrinsic values are like means. Okay, so let me give an example here to make more sense. Happiness, for most of the people, what kind of value it is? Is it intrinsic or extrinsic? Yes. Being happy or happiness, for most of the people, is it intrinsic or extrinsic? Generally, it is intrinsic, right? Because many things we do in our life are for the sake of happiness. For example, career choice, relationship we build, the lifestyle we adopt, hobbies we pursue, the food we like. ये सब क्यों करते हैं हम? Because ultimately we want happiness, right? Okay, earning money. What kind of value it is? Building wealth or earning money? Yes. For generally most of the people, what kind of value it is? Extrinsic, right? Because most of the people don't just earn money for the sake of money. They earn money to satisfy certain needs, to fulfill certain dreams, to achieve certain objectives, right? But इसके लिए exception भी हो सकता है क्या? Yes. ये जो मैंने categorization किया है, इसका exception भी हो सकता है ना. For example, some people use happiness as a means. So they say that when I'm happy, I get things done easily. When my mood is good, I do even complicated tasks easily. So have you heard such things? कि जब मैं हैप्पी होता हूँ, मूड अच्छा होता है, तो डिफिकल्ट काम भी आसान हो जाता है. So in this case, they are using happiness as a means. So here happiness becomes extrinsic value. Okay, have you seen people who earn money for the sake of money only? They are only interested in multiplying money, nothing else. Okay, they don't have even time to enjoy the money they have earned. So कभी ऐसे लोग देखे आपने? They're only after earning the money, nothing else. They don't even want to enjoy the wealth earned. है ना, आज 10 करोड़, कल 20 करोड़, परसों 30 करोड़. So for such people, earning wealth becomes intrinsic value. So again, generally intrinsic extrinsic कॉमन होता है सोसाइटी में. कभी कभी इसको एक्सेप्शन भी हो सकते हैं. सो वॉट एवर इज एक्सट्रिंसिक और इंट्रिंसिक, इट डिपेंड्स ऑन पर्सन. करेक्ट प्रमोद. बट जनरली ये कैटेगराइजेशन क्लियर होता है ना. जनरली इंट्रिंसिक सबके लिए, नॉट सबके लिए, बट मोस्ट ऑफ द पीपल के लिए सेम होता है, और इंट्रिंसिक भी सेम होता है ना. ओके, दिस इज ऑल्सो नोन एज, दिस क्लासिफिकेशन इज ऑल्सो नोन एज internal values and external values. So intrinsic values are internal to person, while extrinsic values are given to the person from the environment. Okay, so I'll give you an example. What a person ultimately wants is not dictated by environment, but who that person is. Okay, ये अंदर से आ रहा है. What ultimately that person wants is not dictated by environment, but who that person really is. But the means that are used to achieve that ultimate end are not always chosen by person, but are also dictated by environment. That's why they are external. Means are external, ends are internal. Okay, I'll give an example. Suppose there are two people, one is from city, another is from a village, and both wants to live a happy life. Both wants happiness. Okay. Now tell me, will their means be same? Yes. Will their means be same? No. Why? Because their environment doesn't allow them to have same means. समझ में आ रहा है आपको? For example, a person living in city will have different means for happiness than a person living in village. For example, in city you'll have theaters, pubs, shopping malls, gardens, playgrounds. In village you may not have access to such facilities. So your means of earning happiness will be different. अब ये कौन डिक्टेट कर रहा है आपके मीन्स? Are these decided by a person or the environment? No, wants is different, means is different. है ना? Wants का मतलब desire, what do you want really? Means का मतलब tools, equipments, ways, how you achieve it. Correct. So extrinsic values are shaped by environment in which you live. That's why they're external values. But the intrinsic values depend on who you really are, because you decide what you ultimately want in life. है ना? So कभी कभी आपने देखा है लोगों ने environment खुद का बदल दिया because their ultimate end wasn't served by environment. है ना? So have you seen some people, they left cities forever and shifted to village to lead a very peaceful and relaxed and calm and quiet life, even if earning was less. And it means also living simple life, not surrounded by material luxuries. Yes, have you seen these cases? Correct. है ना? So आपका homework ये है that you are going to collect examples uh, of both intrinsic values and extrinsic value. Towards the end of session, I'll try to give you some more example. Okay, now let's go for another group, that is moral values, immoral actions, and non-moral values. Now, do you pay attention here that I haven't written here immoral values. I have written immoral actions. Why? Why we can't say immoral values? Yes. Is it right to say immoral values? No. Why? Because when you say values, something is a value, it also implies that it is good, it is desirable, right? It is goal, it is ideal. So morality is implied over there. Correct. That's why the usage cannot be moral values. The right usage is immoral action. Now, to understand this difference, try to understand what is a moral value. So write down the definition of moral value here. Okay. Moral value means that thing which gives voice to our and others' right expectations and need. इसमें right जो word इसको underline करो. एक ही स्टेटमेंट है लेकिन इसमें बहुत सारी चीजें छिपी है. Okay, values are those things or that thing which gives voice to ours and others right expectations and needs. अब इसमें implied क्या है मालूम है? एक चीज ये भी implied है कि morality is a social construct. Do you agree with my statement? Morality is a social construct. है ना, मोरल क्या इमोरल क्या, ये सोसाइटी क्रिएट कर रही है. सो एज लॉन्ग एज you live with at least one person, you are bound by morality. Did I tell you this earlier? है ना, morality is necessary for coexistence. Without morality, coexistence is not possible. है ना, so as long as you live with at least one person, morality is compulsory. Okay, I'll give an example. Now, in our society, when we carry ourselves in front of others, don't we cover our bodies? Yes, we cover our bodies, right? Appropriately. Correct? Is it part of morality? Is it part of moral life to cover our bodies appropriately? Or is it not? Yes, what do you say? Yes, it is, right? But imagine that you are living alone on an island. Are you bound by morality, such morality covering your body? Would it matter whether you are covered your body or whether you are roaming here and there without clothes on? Yes. No, because nobody else is there. So morality is not compulsory, binding. Are you getting the point? So as long as you live with at least one person, you are bound by moral norms. Why? Because when we live together, we have certain legitimate needs which we fulfill with the help of each other, and we have certain legitimate or right expectation from each other. Do you agree with this? Whenever we live together, we have legitimate or right expectations from each other, and we also satisfy each other's needs. Okay, I'll tell you. Okay. Even we expect things from strangers. Minimum expectations strangers से भी होते हैं. Do you agree with this? Yes. Okay, I'll give an example. Suppose you are walking down on a street, on a footpath, and something happens and you trip over and you fall so severely. Your fall down is so severe that you are unable to get up. Okay, इतने जोर से आप गिर जाते हो कि आपको उठना भी पॉसिबल नहीं है now. A stranger is passing by. Would you not have minimum expectation from a stranger? Yes. अगर कोई stranger आपके यहाँ से जा रहा है and you are lying on the ground, will you not expect minimum things from the stranger? क्या expect करोगे आप उस stranger से? Yes. बताओ this response. Yes, correct. Help, right? At least that stranger should help you to get on your feet. This is the minimum. और इसमें गलत कुछ है क्या? Is it right or wrong expectation? No, कुछ भी गलत नहीं ना. It is right expectation. अब इसको जो अंडरलाइन करने वाली वैल्यू है वो है कोऑपरेशन और कंपैशन. राइट नाउ टेल मी, इंस्टेड ऑफ हेल्पिंग यू आउट, दैट स्ट्रेंजर इज टेकिंग योर थिंग्स and running away. What kind of action it is? Yes, immoral, because it has violated the legitimate needs and expectations, right? Or you take another example that you go for shopping, right? So there is a transaction happening between buyer and seller. So in this relation, economic relation, don't they have legitimate expectations from each other? Yes. Do you believe that they have legitimate expectation from each other? For example, the buyer expects that the seller would not sell the defective product and would not charge exorbitant price. Correct? On the other hand, seller expects rightly that the buyer would pay the agreed amount and in the right currency, not fake currency. Now, the value which underlines this behavior, these legitimate right expectation and need, is honesty. And that is why it is moral. Now, certain values are non-moral also. Non-moral means they have nothing to do with morality. For example, painting, indulging into art, कलेक्टिंग एंटिक, ये किसी के लिए वैल्यूएबल है, इंपॉर्टेंट है, बट डज इट ऑलवेज इन्वॉल्व मोरालिटी? क्या लगता है आपको? ऐसी जो चीजें हैं जिसको हम वैल्यूज भी कहते हैं, डू दे ऑलवेज मीन मोरालिटी? नॉट एट ऑल, नॉट एट ऑल, नॉट ऑलवेज. सो उसको कहते हैं नॉन मोरल वैल्यूज, मीन्स दे आर वैल्यूज बट दे हैव नथिंग टू डू विथ मोरालिटी. हैव यू अंडरस्टूड दिस dimension of non-moral values? Yes. Now, one thing I would like to highlight here, a value, depending on the context, could be moral value, non-moral value, or may give rise to immoral action. And it is very interesting. Okay. A value, depending on the context, could be moral value, non-moral value, or it may give rise to immoral action. Now, let me give an example. One example is courage. So, when courage is used to stand against injustice, it is moral value. Do you agree with me? Yes. When courage is used to stand against injustice, it is moral value because that is a legitimate expectation and need of the society. But when courage is used for bungee jumping, so have you heard about bungee jumping? Yes. Yeah, people tie ropes to their body and jump from a cliff, right? That also requires courage. But do you believe it has anything to do with moral dimension or legitimate needs and expectations? No, it is non-moral. And people use courage to do harmful things for others. For example, violence, robbery. है ना? Now, this value is giving rise to immoral action. So, have you seen people using courage for wrong things? Money heist, रिस्क होती है ना उसमें, तो करेज चाहिए उसको फेस करने के लिए, राइट? हाँ. So, have you understood these things? Yes. हाँ, एक ही वैल्यू है, बट डिपेंडिंग ऑन कॉन्टेक्स्ट, it may be moral value, non-moral value, or it may give rise to immoral action. Okay. Now, one more important thing that we are going to study is human acts versus acts of human. So, अभी आपको क्या करना है? टेबल ड्रॉ करना है. दो कॉलम क्रिएट करो अपने पेज के ऊपर. Left hand column should be actions of human and right hand side column should be human actions. Okay. So, draw karo, and once you have drawn it, the table, and titled it like this, let me know. We'll start discussion. Done? Yes. Have you drawn the table? ओके, लेट्स स्टार्ट डिस्कशन। एक्शंस ऑफ ह्यूमन में क्या की थिंग्स है देखो। दीज आर इनवॉलंटरी नेचर। इनवॉलंटरी का मतलब यस, योर वॉल्यूशन और योर इच्छा is not important, and you are not in control, beyond the control. While these human actions are voluntary, you are doing on your own, and they are within the control. Okay, so let's look at some example. Actions of human के देखो, blood circulation, perspiration, beating of heart. तो ये कंट्रोल में होते हैं क्या? Yes, blood circulation, beating of heart, perspiration. Can you control it? Yes. Even breathing, no matter how much you are a devotee of Ramdev Baba, can you control your breathing all the time? Yes. No, sometimes it happens involuntary, right? And you can't control it all the time, है ना? लेकिन यहाँ देखो, helping people, giving information, drinking water, ये ये वॉलंटरी है, कंट्रोल में है। कोई ऐसा कह सकता है क्या, मैं पी रहा था लेकिन मुझे मालूम नहीं मैं पी रहा था? हाँ, यस, हो सकता है क्या? नहीं हो सकता ना। करेक्ट। हाँ। सेकंड, these actions do not require your knowledge or consent. ओके, सो फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अगर आपका कंसेंट होगा तभी आपको पसीना आएगा, ऐसा होता है क्या? यस। या आपके, अगर आपके पास नॉलेज नहीं है तो आपका ब्लड सर्कुलेशन ठीक से नहीं होगा, फॉर दैट यू नीड टू स्टडी बायोलॉजी। ऐसा नहीं होता है ना, इट हैपेंस ऑटोमेटिकली। बट यहाँ, in this case, they do require your knowledge or consent. So for example, now you are writing something on your page. Is it human action or action of human? Yes. अभी जो आप पेज पे लिख रहे हो, इसको क्या कहोगे, ह्यूमन एक्शन कहोगे या एक्शन ऑफ ह्यूमन? ह्यूमन एक्शन, because you know that you are writing and you are writing with your own consent, right? Correct. Now, in actions of human, intellect has no role, or decision making has no role, means it doesn't need to develop your intellect. ओके, आपका इंटेलेक्ट डेवलप्ड होना चाहिए, आप लर्नड होने चाहिए, ट्रेंड होने चाहिए, ऐसा कुछ नहीं। इवन स्मॉल बेबीज हैव ब्लड सर्कुलेशन, दे परस्पायर, राइट? बट इन दिस केसेस यू नीड इन्वॉल्वमेंट ऑफ इंटेलेक्ट, you need to decide and then things happen. Without your intellect, without your decision making, human actions don't happen. And now last and most important, which is the basic of ethics. Okay, this one. For actions of human, you cannot hold a person morally responsible. This is important. Okay. But in human action, yes, a person can be held morally responsible for the action. And that is why ethics is more focused on ह्यूमन एक्शंस। ये इंपॉर्टेंट है एथिक्स के लिए, हम यहां नहीं जाते। दिस इज नॉट द डोमेन ऑफ एथिक्स। समझ में आ रहा है? सो आवर स्टडीज ऑफ एथिक्स विल बी मोर फोकस्ड ऑन ह्यूमन एक्शन रादर देन एक्शंस ऑफ ह्यूमन। इज दिस क्लियर? क्योंकि जहां आप आदमी को रिस्पॉन्सिबल नहीं मान सकते, पकड़ नहीं सकते, देयर यू कैनॉट ब्रिंग एथिक्स। इज दैट क्लियर? ये सबको क्लियर हो रहा है? इंपॉर्टेंट है ये आपके लिए। ओके, गुड। नाउ if you analyze human action in this way, okay, तो आपको ह्यूमन एक्शन के दो एलिमेंट दिखेंगे, ये आपको लिखना है, प्लीज राइट डाउन। इंटेलेक्चुअल एलिमेंट एंड वॉलेटिव एलिमेंट। ओके, राइट इट डाउन। Intellectual element and volitive element. A person is aware of what he or she is doing. Okay. That is intellectual element. While volitive element is a person has made a choice or consented to the action. जब ये दोनों एलिमेंट प्रेजेंट होते हैं तभी उसको हम ह्यूमन एक्शन कहते हैं। इसमें से एक भी एलिमेंट अगर एब्सेंट है तो उसको हम ह्यूमन एक्शन नहीं कह सकते। ओके, सो कैन यू टेल मी दैट कि इसमें से एक एलिमेंट एब्सेंट हो सकता है क्या? जैसे इंटेलेक्चुअल एलिमेंट ही बताओ, हो सकता है एब्सेंट? यस पीपल, हो सकता है ना। पर्टिकुलरली हैव यू सीन अमॉन्ग अंडर एज किड्स, अंडर एज चिल्ड्रन, छोटे बच्चों में हाँ, आपने कभी कभी देखा है उनको ऐसी चीजें करते हुए विच आर हार्मफुल, अनएथिकल? आग लगा देते हैं, गैस का नॉब ऑन कर देते हैं, हाँ, इलेक्ट्रिक सॉकेट में उंगली डाल देंगे, राइट? हाँ, सो उनको इम्प्लीकेशन मालूम होते हैं? आर दे mature enough to understand the gravity of what they are doing? Yes, no. Have you seen reflection of this thing in law? ये जो मैं आपको बता रहा हूँ इसका जो रिफ्लेक्शन है ये आपको लॉ में दिखाई देता है क्या? Yes, Juvenile Justice Act. So when underage children perform some serious crime or do some serious crime, they are not punished like adults. Yes, is it true? When underage kid commit some serious crime, they are not punished like adults because it is believed that they are not intellectually mature enough to know the gravity of. And this thing is exploited by the criminal masterminds. They make use of underage kids for crimes. Yes, have you seen? अंडरएज बच्चों को यूज करते क्राइम के लिए। हम्म, है ना, करते हैं ना। यस इट इज। अच्छा, ये और किस में होता है? यस, हु डिस्प्लेज लैक ऑफ इंटेलेक्चुअल एलिमेंट? हम्म, पीपल हु आर मेंटली इल और मेंटली डिसेबल्ड। समझ में आ रहा है? हाँ, पीपल हु आर मेंटली इल और मेंटली डिसेबल्ड। अच्छा, वेल ग्रोन एंड हेल्दी एडल्ट भी कभी कभी इंटेलेक्चुअल एलिमेंट दिखा सकते हैं क्या? लैक ऑफ इंटेलेक्चुअल एलिमेंट। हम्म, हो सकता है ना। when they have to act in emergency and they don't have complete information but still have to take decision। कभी कभी ऐसा होता है ना क्राइसिस में, they have to act fast but they don't have enough information to act on it। Yes, when intellectual element is absent, it's not human action, right? A person should be aware, right? हाँ, इसको हम और भी एक्सप्लोर करेंगे, डोंट वरी। हाँ, वॉलेटिव एलिमेंट में क्या होता है? चॉइस या कंसेंट होती है। बट आपको लगता है कभी कभी वॉलेटिव एलिमेंट भी मिसिंग हो सकता है? हम्म, क्या लगता है आपको? डू यू बिलीव दैट वॉलेटिव एलिमेंट कुड बी मिसिंग? यस, सो have you seen examples where people are forced to do something which is wrong but they didn't want to do but they were not left with choice? Yes, कुछ लोगों को डरा धमका के गलत चीजें करने के लिए मजबूर किया जाता है। सो हु इज रिस्पॉन्सिबल हियर? द वन हु इज डूइंग रॉन्ग थिंग और द वन हु इज फोर्सिंग देम टू डू रॉन्ग थिंग? Right, blackmailing is also one example. No, not both. No, no, it is not both the people are not treated as accused. When it is proven that the person who was forced haven't had a choice, he is not accused. The one who is blackmailing, correct? Yes. हाँ. So ह्यूमन एक्शन होने के लिए दोनों एलिमेंट इंपॉर्टेंट है, इंटेलेक्चुअल एलिमेंट एंड वॉलेटिव एलिमेंट, बट कभी कभी मिसिंग हो सकते हैं. ओके, आई विल गिव क्लासिक एग्जांपल. ओके, 3 मर्डर के केसेस ले लो. एक कोल्ड ब्लडेड मर्डर, एक मर्डर अंडर डन द इन्फ्लुएंस ऑफ रेज और एंगर, एंड थर्ड इज मर्डर डन इन सेल्फ डिफेंस. तो इसमें कौन सा मर्डर माफ किया जाता है? यस, विच मर्डर इज गिवन? सेल्फ डिफेंस वाला. क्यों सेल्फ डिफेंस में क्यों माफ किया जाता है इवन दो इट इज मर्डर? ऑफ कोर्स यू हैव टू प्रूव इन कोर्ट दैट इट वाज प्योरली एन एक्ट ऑफ सेल्फ डिफेंस, बट क्यों माफ किया जाता है? यस, volitive element is missing. The person haven't had a choice, he was forced to do that. Are you getting the point? Volitive element is missing, no choice. Yes. अच्छा, गुस्से में जो मर्डर होता है उसको रिलेटिवली सजा कम होती है कंपेयर टू द मर्डर डन इन कोल्ड ब्लडेड मैनर. क्यों? यस, डू यू अग्री विद दिस? द मर्डर डन इन एक्सट्रीम रेज और फिट ऑफ एंगर receives relatively less quantum of punishment compared to cold-blooded murder. Yes, क्योंकि उस केस में गुस्से में आपका इंटेलेक्चुअल एलिमेंट भी कमजोर हो जाता है और वॉलिटिव एलिमेंट भी कमजोर हो जाता है. आर यू गेटिंग द पॉइंट? करेक्ट. बट आपको कोर्ट में ये प्रूव करना पड़ता है दैट टू हैव सच एक्सट्रीम एंगर इन सच सिचुएशन वाज नेचुरल. समझ में आ रहा है? हाँ, जैसे मानो आपके बच्चे को कोई विलिंगली हर्ट कर रहा है आपके सामने, इतना कि उसकी जान जाएगी, सो कोई शांत रह सकता है क्या? इसको शांति से हैंडल कर सकता है क्या? यस, नो, नॉट पॉसिबल, राइट? हाँ, बट स्टिल यू कांट क्लेम दैट यू आर नॉट रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर इट. कुछ तो रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी आपका भी है ना? इफ यू किल समवन इन एन एंगर, यू आर ऑल्सो पार्शियली रिस्पॉन्सिबल, सो यू आर ऑल्सो पनिश्ड. बट कोल्ड ब्लडेड में दोनों एलिमेंट स्ट्रांग है. ओके, इंटेलेक्चुअल एलिमेंट, अ पर्सन इज अवेयर व्हाट ही इज डूइंग और वो चॉइस डेलिबरेटली कर रहा है, दैट्स व्हाई इट रिसीव्स मोर क्वांटम ऑफ पनिशमेंट. ठीक है, अब इसके साथ ही अलाइंड एक टॉपिक है जिसको मैंने पीपीटी पे नहीं डाला है, राइट इट डाउन. impediments to human action. Okay, it is extension of this element of human action. Impediments to human action. So there are 4 impediments that we are going to briefly discuss. Impediments, obstacles, you can write this word also. Impediments, ये देखो मैंने चैट बॉक्स में डाल दिया है ना. हाँ, सो 4 इंपेडिमेंट है. लिखो, पहला इग्नोरेंस. सो व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय इग्नोरेंस? क्या होता है इग्नोरेंस? इसको हम कहते हैं लैक ऑफ अवेयरनेस और लैक ऑफ नॉलेज, अज्ञान. इन मराठी वी कॉल इट अज्ञान. सो इग्नोरेंस इज ऑफ 2 टाइप, विंसिबल इग्नोरेंस एंड इनविंसिबल इग्नोरेंस. नो, नॉट पेइंग अटेंशन इज इग्नोरिंग. इंपेडिमेंट्स का मतलब है ऑब्स्टैकल्स, अड़थड़ा, है ना. हाँ, विंसिबल का मतलब यू कैन डिस्ट्रॉय इट एंड इट इज एक्सपेक्टेड दैट यू शुड डिस्ट्रॉय इट, यू कैन ओवरकम इट. बट इनविंसिबल का मतलब है यू कैन नॉट डिस्ट्रॉय इट और ओवरकम it within a given time. So for example, can you teach complex moral norms or ethical dimensions to kids? छोटे बच्चों का इथिक्स के बारे में जो इग्नोरेंस है वो उनके यंग एज में डिस्ट्रॉय कर सकते हो क्या पूरा का पूरा? कैन दे अंडरस्टैंड ऑल कॉम्प्लेक्स मोरल थिंग्स और इथिकल थिंग्स, इथिकल इश्यूज? यस, नो. सो दैट इज इनविंसिबल. बट विंसिबल का मतलब क्या है? दैट it can be destroyed, and it is expected that it should be destroyed. So for example, tomorrow after getting into civil services, you will be trained for the job, है ना? उसके बाद में आप इग्नोरेंस क्लेम नहीं कर सकते कि मुझे ये मालूम नहीं था, बिकॉज यू आर ट्रेन्ड फॉर इट. Even common citizens are expected to be aware or have knowledge of the common laws of the country. So in a court, they can't claim the ignorance of the laws. वो ऐसा नहीं कह सकते कि मुझे मालूम नहीं था, इसके लिए कानून था, otherwise I would not have committed the crime. ऐसा क्लेम करके वो खुद को बचा नहीं सकते. Do you agree with me? Yes. Right. So suppose someone commits a murder and tomorrow he argues in court that, oh, there is a law for it. I didn't know it. Had I known, I would not have done it. Is it really convincing? Even if it is literally true. Okay. Don't you think there are certain communities that are completely detached from mainstream society? They are not aware of the laws and the system of law. But still, such defense is not available to citizens, right? They can't claim lack of awareness. But yes, in invincible ignorance, you can't hold a person responsible. For example, even officers have to take certain decisions in emergency. And if those decisions turn out to be bad or wrong, they are not punished for genuine mistake. Are you getting the point? If such decisions turn out to be bad or wrong, these officers are not punished for genuine mistake. I'll give you classic example. Okay. बालाकोट स्ट्राइक, सर्जिकल स्ट्राइक हुआ था, इंडिया ने किया था. डू यू रिमेंबर बालाकोट सर्जिकल स्ट्राइक? राइट. Yes, guys. Do you remember Balakot surgical strike? So in that surgical strike, our one of the helicopter was shot down. ये आपको मालूम है? Yes. One of our helicopter was shot down, and the pilot of the helicopter was from Maharashtra, Nashik. So do you know who did it? Who shot down the helicopter? Any idea? Have you heard it? Have you read about it? किसने ये किया था? Yes. It was shot down by our people because they mistook it for enemies and they haven't had enough time to verify an act. But after investigation, when it was revealed that it was a genuine mistake, nobody was punished. But another case where some people fired BrahMos towards Pakistan without provocation and they were court-martialed, they were suspended. क्यों? अब पाकिस्तान तो इनिमी कंट्री है ना, उसकी तरफ फायर करने में क्या प्रॉब्लम है? But they deliberately violated protocol and policy of India, that is no first use. समझ में आ रहा है? अगर विदाउट प्रोवोकेशन आप अटैक करते हो, यू आर वायलेटिंग इंडियाज पॉलिसी ऑफ नो फर्स्ट यूज, है ना? एंड दैट्स व्हाई इट वाज विंसिबल इग्नोरेंस which they should have overcome, but they displayed it and they got punished. समझ में आ रहा है? Or you take hypothetical example. Suppose while patrolling, a police officer accidentally kills another guy in the night, and that guy later on turns out to be an undercover police officer. Now, will he be charged for the murder of undercover police officer? Yes. Will he be charged for the murder of or death of undercover police officer? अगर अंधेरे में उसके हाथ से हत्या हो जाती है एक आदमी की और बाद में मालूम पड़ता है कि अंडरकवर पुलिस ऑफिसर था, will he be charged for the death of undercover police officer? No, because he didn't know it, right? He did not know it. Correct. Yes, ignorance, invincible ignorance. He will be charged for the death of a person, and that is due to negligence, right? Okay, second impediment is anger. So what happens when you get excessively angry? Do you remember when you became excessively angry? Rage जिसको हम कहते हैं. हाँ? क्या होता है इस रेज में? Yes. In anger, you are succumb to only few thoughts. They keep rolling again and again in your mind. And you enter into self-hypnotism. ओके, भगवत गीता में इसका एक ब्यूटीफुल श्लोक है ना? क्रोधात उद्भवति सम्मोहा, सम्मोहात स्मृति विभ्रम, स्मृति भ्रंशात बुद्धिनाशो, बुद्धिनाशात प्रणश्यति। सो सेल्फ हिप्नोटिज्म हो जाता है, एंड व्हेन यू आर हिप्नोटाइज्ड, योर मेमोरी ऑफ अदर थिंग्स इज लॉस्ट टेम्पररीली, इट इज गॉन, एंड मेमोरी इज गॉन, देन योर इंटेलेक्ट और बुद्धि स्टॉप्स वर्किंग एंड यू एक्ट ऑन इंस्टिंक्ट। समझ में आ रहा है ये कैसे होता है? या यू लूज योर इंटेलेक्चुअल एलिमेंट, करेक्ट, क्योंकि आप हिप्नोटाइज हो गए हो बिकॉज ऑफ द लिमिटेड थॉट्स। सो कभी देखा है आपने गुस्से में लोग मर्डर कर बैठते हैं, है ना? उस वक्त में वो सोच नहीं पाते, देयर एबिलिटी टू थिंक रैशनल इज गॉन बिकॉज ऑफ द सेल्फ हिप्नोटिज्म। गुस्से में खुद को ऑब्जर्व करो कभी कभी। एक्चुअली इट इज वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू ऑब्जर्व वन सेल्फ इन एंगर, बट कभी कभी कर सकते हो। यू विल रियलाइज दैट ओनली फ्यू थॉट्स आर अगेन एंड अगेन रोलिंग इन योर माइंड, एंड यू गेट hypnotized by them. You become slave of these thoughts. अच्छा, थर्ड इंपेडिमेंट है फियर। फियर दो टाइप की होती है, सडनली अराइजिंग फियर एंड लॉन्ग टर्म फियर विच अकम्पनीड बाय एंजाइटी। अब ये जो सेकंड वाला है, इट कैन बी डेल्ट विथ रैशनली, ओके, लेकिन सडनली अराइजिंग जो फियर है उसको डील करना थोड़ा डिफिकल्ट है, बिकॉज इट शट्स डाउन आवर थिंकिंग मैकेनिज्म एंड वी एंटर इनटू फाइट वर्सेस फ्लाइट मोड। फॉर एग्जाम्पल, सपोज यू आर सडनली facing a giant cobra, okay, unexpectedly. Will you think rationally, oh, what kind of cobra it is? Is it tamed or wild? Is it poisonous? Does it have fangs or teeth to bite me? Will you think like that? Will you have that mental space to think rationally and then decide how to react? No. Your conscious mechanism shuts down and automatic mechanism takes over, and it forces you to act on fight versus flight response. Right? If you have something in hand, you will give it a shot, or if you don't have anything, you'll take U-turn and run away. So sometimes ये जो response होता है under the fear is not always ethical. Sometimes it forces you to act unethically. Okay, for example, it happened in USA. A couple went out for a party by leaving behind their teenage daughter. So she was bored. So she decided to invite her own friend and have her own party. Okay, so when her parents were coming back, she wanted to give them surprise. So she shut down all the lights and asked her friends to keep quiet. But being children, they couldn't keep quiet. Her father thought there are robbers in the house, and his daughter is alone, and uh, she's risk facing individual. So he takes a gun and tries to enter into the house. And someone comes towards him in the dark. He thinks it is a robber and he shoots, but it is his daughter, and she dies. अब ये जो उसने रिस्पॉन्स दिया, टेकिंग आउट गन एंड शूटिंग समवन इन द डार्क, इट वाज नॉट कॉन्शियस, इट वाज अंडर द फियर. It shuts down the rational thinking ability, and sometimes such responses are not always ethical. And last impediment, write down, is passion or lust. In Marathi we call it vasna. So have you seen people performing unethical things under the influence of lust or passion? For example, lust for money, lust for power, lust for sexual pleasure. Yes, have you seen people doing unethical things under such influences? And to that extent, David Hume is correct when he says reason is the slave of passion. So when passion arises, they enslave the reason. So have you seen people using their uh, logical thinking to manipulate others and to satisfy their lust? Yes, कभी कभी देखा है आपने कि लोग खुद के रीजन को भी इस्तेमाल करते हैं टू सेटिस्फाई देयर लस्ट बाय मैनिपुलेटिंग अदर्स. तो इन दिस केस लस्ट और पैशन इज हेवीली गाइडिंग देयर थिंकिंग, है ना? सो अभी भी देखो ना, इस देश में पैशन और लस्ट के पहले फियर था. सो इस देश में आज भी देखो ना, सत्ता के लस्ट की वजह से लोग कुछ भी कर रहे हैं. अभी नहीं देखा? यस, फायरिंग हो रही है ना? वायलेंस हो रहा है, मिसयूज ऑफ मशीनरी, अथॉरिटी, पुलिस, ये हो रहा है. अभी दिखाई दे रहा है ना कुछ एग्जाम्पल, किसी स्टेट में, किसी एरिया में अभी ऐसा हो रहा है ना. हाँ, दैट इज अ लस्ट. इवन लस्ट फॉर मनी, वेल्थ, पीपल कमिट मर्डर फॉर मनी, राइट? So these are the four impediments you have to keep in mind. And आपको जो केस स्टडी आएगा या एग्जाम्पल आएगा, उसमें आपको ये एनालाइज करना है कि इसमें से कौन सा इम्पेडिमेंट प्रेजेंट था कि जिसकी वजह से ह्यूमन एक्शन इथिकल नहीं हो पाया। सेकंड मैंने एंगर बताया है, गुस्सा, क्रोध। सो चार कौन से हैं? इग्नोरेंस, एंगर, फियर एंड लस्ट और पैशन। अच्छा, फियर में भी जो पहला वाला फियर है उसको आप बहुत बार प्रोफेशन में डील कर सकते हो व्हेन यू ट्रेन टू फेस योर सेल्फ फॉर इट। व्हेन यू ट्रेन योर सेल्फ टू फेस इट, हो सकता है फॉर एग्जाम्पल इन फायर डिपार्टमेंट, फायर ब्रिगेड, दे ट्रेन पीपल टू फेस द फियर ऑफ फायर। और इन मिलिट्री दे आर ट्रेन टू फेस वेरियस फियर्स लाइक हाइट, एनिमल्स, हैंड टू हैंड कॉम्बैट, ब्लड, है ना। हाँ। सो चार, इग्नोरेंस, एंगर, फियर एंड पैशन। समझ में आ गया आपको? यस। ओके, नाउ कंप्लीट दिस चार्ट, राइट डाउन दिस एग्जांपल्स। ये जो मैंने लिखे हैं ये आप लिख लो, और यहां जो बीच में लिखा है वो पढ़ो आप, ठीक है। डन? हैव यू रिटन एग्जांपल्स? यस। नाउ दिस पार्ट इज इंपॉर्टेंट। ओके, in UPSC and even in MPSC, they see that whether you are able to give value judgment or not, means evaluating a particular human action or option by using values, or to locate that human action in a particular values. So इसमें से कौन से values में human action आ रहा है और उसके तरफ कैसे देखना है, ये जब आप डिसाइड करते हो, then you are able to give value judgment. Is that clear? Yes. So shall we stop, guys? Yes. इतना काफी है आज के लिए, है ना। मार्टरडम, है ना, किस टाइप में आएगा आप बताओ? कौन से वैल्यूज में आएगा मार्टरडम? इथिकल है, अनइथिकल है या नॉन इथिकल है? इथिकल ही होगा ना। या, बिकॉज इट इज अ सैक्रिफाइस फॉर द वेलबींग ऑफ अदर्स। राइट। सो आई थिंक दिस इज मोर देन इनफ, शैल वी स्टॉप देन? immoral action is something that violates moral values, है ना। जैसे मैंने एग्जांपल आपको दिया था, इंस्टेड ऑफ हेल्पिंग यू आउट द स्ट्रेंजर रन्स अवे विथ योर मनी, that is immoral action because it has violated the ethical value of compassion or cooperation. Is this clear? Okay. Good night to all of you. Keep revising things. Okay. Keep reading textbooks that I told you. Good night.